The scaffold stood dark against a frozen January sky. Thousands crowded Whitehall, their breath turning to mist in the bitter winter air. Soldiers held them back. No one shouted. No one moved. All eyes were fixed on the upper window of banqueting house. Inside, a king dressed in black prepared to face his fate. In a matter of minutes, King Charles I of England would step onto that scaffold and become the first reigning English monarch executed by his own subjects. How did it come to this? How did a great capital city turn against its king, fortify itself against him, and ultimately approve his death? The answer lies in years of distrust, ambition, faith, and war. When Charles Stuart became king in 1625, he inherited more than a crown. He inherited an idea, the belief in the divine right of kings. To Charles, monarchy was sacred. A king ruled by God's authority and answered to no earthly power. But England was changing. Parliament, representing nobles, landowners, and a rising merchant class, believed the king must govern within limits. Taxes required consent. Laws required debate. Authority required balance. Charles rejected this thinking completely. Within 4 years, he had dissolved Parliament 3 times for challenging him. In 1629, frustrated and defiant, he dismissed Parliament altogether and began what became known as the personal rule. 11 years of governing alone. Without Parliament's approval, he raised money through controversial taxes. He enforced religious reforms that many Protestants feared were dangerously close to Catholic practices. His marriage to the French Catholic Queen Henrietta Maria only deepened suspicion. Tension simmered across the kingdom. When Charles attempted to impose Anglican religious structures on Presbyterian Scotland, it triggered open rebellion. By 1640, facing war with the Scots and desperately short of money, Charles had no choice but to recall Parliament. But the Parliament that returned was not forgiving. Led by figures like John Pym, members dismantled the king's authority piece by piece. They abolished unpopular taxes. They impeached his powerful minister, the Earl of Strafford, and forced Charles to sign his death warrant. Trust was collapsing. Then, in January 1642, Charles made a fatal mistake. Accompanied by armed soldiers, he entered the House of Commons to arrest 5 members of Parliament on charges of treason. It was an unprecedented violation of parliamentary privilege. The members had already fled. When the king demanded to know their whereabouts, Speaker William Lenthall famously responded that he had neither eyes to see nor tongue to speak, except as directed by the House. The king left humiliated. Within days, fearing unrest, Charles abandoned London. He would never again enter his capital peacefully. And London made its choice. The city, home to nearly 400,000 people, was England's economic heart. It controlled the largest port, vast financial networks, the Royal Mint, and the Tower of London's arsenal. Its merchant class, many of them Puritans, deeply distrusted the king. London sided with Parliament. In August
Monarchy is abolished.
1642,
A commonwealth
Charles
is
raised
declared.
his royal standard, officially beginning the English Civil War. Both sides believed the conflict would be short. One decisive battle would settle everything. They were wrong. The first major clash at Edgehill ended without a clear victor, yet it left the road to London dangerously exposed. As royalist forces advanced toward the capital, panic spread through the city. Prince Rupert's cavalry stormed through towns along the Thames Valley, looting and burning. When Brentford fell, just 12 miles from London, fear turned to urgency. Everything now depended on whether Londoners would fight their own king. They did. On November 13th, 1642, around 24,000 men assembled west of London at Turnham Green. Among them were trained bands, part-time militia made up of shopkeepers, craftsmen, and apprentices. They stood beside professional soldiers, armed and ready. Across the field stood the Royalist army, outnumbered nearly 2 to 1. Charles faced a terrible decision. To attack meant slaughtering thousands of his own subjects, the very citizens whose loyalty he hoped to regain. After hours of tense standoff, he chose to retreat. Fewer than 50 men died that day, but strategically it was a decisive victory for Parliament. London was saved, terrified that the king might return stronger. Parliament ordered the construction of massive defenses. In 1643, some 20,000 workers, men, women, and even children, built an extraordinary system of fortifications. 18 kilometers of earth ramparts and ditches encircled London. 23 forts bristling with cannon guarded vulnerable points. The city became a fortress. Behind those defenses, London became Parliament's engine of war. Its wealth funded armies. The Navy sided with Parliament, securing the seas. Printing presses flooded the country with pamphlets attacking tyranny. Puritan preachers filled churches with fiery sermons about liberty and divine justice. The war dragged on. Initially, Royalist forces gained ground. But in 1644, Parliament allied with Scotland and achieved a major victory at Marston Moor. Soon after, the new model army was formed. A professional, disciplined military force, unlike anything England had seen before. In 1645, at the Battle of Naseby, this army shattered Charles's main forces. By 1646, the king surrendered, but peace did not follow. Parliament attempted negotiations, yet Charles refused meaningful compromise. Secretly, he plotted to regain power, striking deals with various factions. His actions sparked a second civil war in 1648. This time, the army had had enough. Radicalized by years of bloodshed, they believed God had delivered victory, and that justice must follow. In December 1648, soldiers purged Parliament of members who favored negotiation. What remained? The Rump Parliament voted to put the king on trial. In January 1649, an extraordinary event unfolded inside Westminster Hall. A reigning monarch was charged with treason against his own people. Charles refused to recognize the court's authority. He would not remove his hat. He would not plead. He insisted no subject had the right to judge a king. The court disagreed. On
This throne
January
stood empty for
27th,
centuries, a symbol of
he
power
was
now held by our
found
assemblies.
guilty. 59 commissioners signed his death warrant. 3 days later, he walked calmly to the scaffold. He wore 2 shirts to prevent the cold from making him shiver. He did not want fear to be mistaken in his final moments. He forgave his executioner. He declared that he exchanged a corruptible crown for an incorruptible one. Then he laid his head upon the block. The axe fell in a single stroke. A groan rose from the crowd, whether of horror or approval. No one could agree. England had executed its king. Monarchy was abolished. England was declared a commonwealth. Oliver Cromwell rose to power as Lord Protector. For 11 years, England experimented with republican rule, but stability proved elusive. After Cromwell's death, the monarchy was restored in 1660 under Charles II. Yet something fundamental had changed. The execution of Charles I shattered the idea that a king ruled beyond accountability. It demonstrated, violently and irrevocably, that sovereignty could rest not in divine right, but in the will of the nation. Decades later, the Glorious Revolution would cement constitutional monarchy in England. The scaffold at Whitehall was removed. The fortifications were dismantled. But the memory remained. That cold January day marked the violent birth of modern constitutional government. It began with a king who believed he answered only to God. It ended with a city that proved he answered to history.